want to thank you for carving out some time to be with us. We have a very dynamic set of panelists tonight. They are not paid actors, they're the real deal. They're hardworking and amazing superintendents who have managed to carve out some time to share some of their collective wisdom, and we're very, very grateful for them. We also have a very dynamic moderator tonight, very energetic, and you'll get to meet her in just a moment. But I also just wanted to take a moment now to thank my friends at CALSA for agreeing to this collaboration. It's been so much fun putting it together. They are the most amazing people to work with, and I just feel so very lucky to be able to work on this project with them. And especially to my friend Chris Goki, who is the co-director of resource development for CALSA. Did I get that right? So anyway, I just wanted to thank him. He's been my partner in crime throughout all this. And so Chris, I'm gonna let you take it away.
Thank you so much, Margarita. And it's nice to see you. Nice to see all of the familiar faces on the panel. And I wanna echo what Margarita said. It's such a pleasure to bring great leaders together, and we're so fortunate to be a part of it. Here at CALSA and at ACSA, we want to model great conversations for you. We want to give you ideas and strategies to help you go further faster. And so this conversation is really designed for you. And we've assembled a diverse group of respected leaders throughout the state, from all over the state, and a fabulous moderator. So I get the pleasure of introducing my friend and our moderator for today. And then we'll have the panelists introduce themselves. So I get to introduce Dr. Robin Avilar-LaSalle. Dr. LaSalle is the co-founder and CEO of Arenda Education, a professional education and technical assistance organization. For more than 20 years, Dr. Robin Avilar-LaSalle and the Arenda team have been thought partners with districts and schools, aspiring to transform their systems and practices to raise student achievement. An equity warrior and an advocate for justice within the educational system, Dr. Robin Avilar-LaSalle's mission is to change the odds for the more than 2 million California kids for whom the current system of instruction and improvement are not working, predominantly Latino, African American, and students from under-resourced families. She received her PhD from Stanford University, and during her career has held roles as a teacher, a principal, district administrator, researcher, and university professor. She's the author of many articles on educational equity and several books, including her newest book, Shattering Inequities, Real-World Wisdom for School and District Leaders, written in partnership with Dr. Ruth S. Johnson. Welcome, Robin, and the floor is all yours. Nice to see you.
Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to be together with the two organizations that light my fire, and also the fire of all of us out in the field. These are the true equity warriors who are here with us today in the panel and in the audience. So welcome, welcome. Every time I start, I say something personal, just to recognize that we're human. And this time it's a little bit serious. I'm wearing purple, and purple is the color of a particular illness that I'm living with somewhere in my family. And so I want to send love to everybody out who's watching, who has family, friends, neighbors who are experiencing the challenges of real life. And with all the love in my heart, we're going to love you well, healthy, and strong. So there. With that, Dr. Matthews, Dr. Vincent Matthews is here with us. Would you please introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Vincent Matthews. I am the superintendent from the San Francisco Unified School District. Starting my 4th year there, and previous to that, I was a superintendent at a few other cities in the state of California, and born and raised in San Francisco, and now a product of the San Francisco Unified School District, and now come full circle and am superintendent now. So happy to be here with you this afternoon.
Oh, local boy makes good. What a beautiful story. I know it well. Thank you for being here. Martin, would you please introduce yourself to our friends out in the world?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Martin Macias. I'm the superintendent at Golden Plains Unified School District in Fresno County, on the west side of the county. Been here for this is my 6th year as a superintendent. Been at the county office for quite a few years. Been been in the Valley all my life. So glad to be here. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us. This is wonderful. And Dr. Sandra Lyons, known to me and most of us as Sandy. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Robin. I'm so glad to be here with CALSA and ACSA. What a great event, and with some esteemed colleagues. I have been in education now for 34 years. Most of my career was in LA County. I am now the proud superintendent of Palm Springs Unified School District in my 5th year. So I've spent 13 years as a superintendent. I currently serve on the board of the California Collaborative for Educational Excellence, and I'm a proud ACSA member, and I am past president of Region 19. So thank you for having me.
There we go. We're among royalty. So thank you so much for being here. Well, I think we'll start straight away. People are using terms like unprecedented and never before seen and only time in history. And it is, and yet it isn't. As educators, it seems like we must walk on water all the time. If it's not one river, it's another ocean that we have to walk. So the question I'd like to throw out to you is, now that we've been into the school year for a little bit, for most of us, what noteworthy lessons or early takeaways can you share with our audience regarding needing to open school while walking on water? And let's see, I'm looking at Sandy, and you smiled and nodded, so I'll take that as nonverbal interest in sharing.
So lessons and takeaways. Well, this has been a challenging year. And like I said, I've spent 34 years in education and 13 as a superintendent. And I can honestly tell you, I've had more sleepless nights in these last 6 months than any time prior to that. But one of the things that is a big takeaway for me, and I think about this a lot in public education, is how resilient and innovative we are. We have been able to really make something from nothing and really spin on a dime. We're not where we need to be yet, and I think we would all agree that the learning curve has been steep, but it really speaks to the depth and the care of educators, our teachers, our staff, our administrators, and I think that is amazing. The other thing for me that is, even though I know it intellectually has been a big aha, is just how vital our schools are to our communities. We talk about our schools as the hub and, sort of the heartbeat of a community. And I know that, and in our district, which is 89% unduplicated count, and we serve all of our students through the community eligibility program, we know our food service is important. But when you get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and see hundreds of cars lined up waiting for those food components, and so grateful that you're there as that part of their life system, that for me has been just a really important takeaway, that we remember how important we are in our communities, digitally, in person, but for so many support services. So it's good to be reminded of that, because sometimes in education we forget how critical and vital we are.
So true, words to live by. Thank you so much. I'm looking at Dr. Matthews, moving in his seat. Speak to us about some lessons or takeaways.
So totally agree with Sandy. We're very similar, 35 years in education and 14 years as a superintendent. So very similarly, the last 6 months have been the most difficult. Definitely realizing even more so this position of leadership, and in so many ways the authority that we have and the ability that we have and hold in our hands to assist our communities in bringing them up, lifting them up, and in so many ways giving them hope. I would say we've had the opportunity. We're watching, and I think we've known that the gaps are there, but the pandemic has actually just shown a bright light on what we've done well and where those gaps are. We estimate that since the pandemic started, we've given out over 2 million meals, served more than 2 million meals. We have distributed close to 35,000 devices for students to connect, and over 10,000 hotspots to make sure they're able to connect. And even with those bright spots, we know that there's so much more that needs to be done. I would say one lesson learned over this time really has been, especially over the summer and comparing what we are doing now to what we did in the spring was our ability over the summer to listen to our families and to hear from them what's working and what's not has absolutely, we're still not, don't get me wrong, we're still not where we need to be, but we've heard from our parents, we've heard from our educators, and the fall learning is 180 degrees from where we were in the spring. So I would say that bright spot of being able to listen to our parents and working with our labor partners to improve upon what we did in the spring has been dynamic, and really proud of that work.
That's very inspiring. To find bright spots that are meaningful and profound during this time is so wonderful. Martin, what has been your experience?
I'm going to echo what Dr. Matthews and Sandy have shared with us. And if I can add, listening to our parents and students through stakeholder meetings, right? Focus groups, and then with our staffs, having them be part of the helping us solve some of these challenges that we have in front of us. And that has been, I think, the thing that has provided us with even more traction early on, because early on they were able to say, if we go this route, if we do grade level teams, then we might be able to get more accomplished early on. Even today, we were just at a meeting, and after school, right, we have almost 40 people classified and certificated, helping us get into the next level of where we need to be at with providing with some of the access that we need for our students because of technology right now. No Wi-Fi because of we cover 360 square miles of territory. So we have these gaps. So listening to our folks, because they live here in the community, they have generations, and that has been one of the things that has given us quite a bit of insights. And our parents, trusting that we're doing everything that we can for them, as we have rolled out a pilot back in July, and through that pilot, help them understand some of the precautions that we were taking, and even our folks, right? So it helped early on to be able to, as we started this fall, have some sense of trust that we have some things in place, yet we have some other things that we have to grow on.
Thank you. I'm going to throw a little twist in here that just came to mind. I think we would be remiss not to bring up, and that is CALSA and ACSA are the premier organizations for developing leadership that is equity-minded and that advocates for every student, no matter the circumstance, and every family and every community. If I would ask you to share one lesson with an up-and-coming, aspiring leader, based on your experience since the spring, what might that be? Dr. Matthews?
So definitely to make sure that you are, one of the things that I would say is that as you're moving from position to position, your network should change. So for example, if you were a principal and your network was a group of principals and that's who you were working with and leaning on and getting advice from, and then you became, let's say, a director, your network should not still be the principals, but it should become the directors who you're working with. I think one of the things that has assisted me in lessons learned and is the ability to right now lean upon other superintendents and call other superintendents and say, how are you handling this? Because so often what I've seen during this pandemic time is, for example, the media will say, well, I'm in San Francisco. They'll say, well, Oakland is doing this. Why aren't you doing this? And then when I call Kyla, who's in Oakland, Kyla says, no, we're not doing that. Mm-hmm. So it's been the ability to call colleagues who are peer colleagues and lean upon them to find out what they're actually doing, as well as to say, hey, I'm working on this problem. What are you doing about it? Bouncing ideas off of each other. So the one idea I would share is that make sure your networks expands as you are up and coming, so that your network matches the new position that you're in, so that you're able to bounce ideas off of each other.
That's very helpful. it's probably a time when aspiring or new administrators changing positions feel reticent to call on people because they're so busy. And yet, counterintuitively, I have found leaders to be more open than ever to help their colleagues deal with issues and not have to reinvent solutions. I see what you're saying. Martin, what would you share?
I think what Dr. Matthews shared with us is key. In the Central Valley, where I'm at, rural, right? Yet having access to CALSA and ACSA statewide, in some cases with the International Center, even at the national level, there's some things that we can tap into without having to leave our school district. And I guess as I reflect on our leadership team, because I bring in even our supervisors, classified supervisors, right? They have some gems of information to share with us, some wisdom that if we listen to what they're doing at the ground level, at the district office, there are things that we can align and be able to even get more traction with the service we provide with our staffs and our parents and our students.
It's so true. I recognize my failure early on in my career. I felt like I could do it all by myself. And then, because, and all that, but boy, is that wrong. So yes, ACSA and CALSA are key. Thank you for that. Sandy, what would you share?
I agree so much with what Vincent and Martin have said. I think, really that idea that you need a network, you need that support, you need a system. And what Martin said earlier as well about really deeply listening and involving and engaging stakeholders, nothing's more important right now than that. And I would add, I used to work with a colleague who always told me, listen as if your mind can be changed. And I think in this time, we sometimes get out, and it goes to Vincent's point of, I'm going to go down this path. This is how we're going. We're going to talk to the board about this. We're going to work on this with our labor partners. And then somebody else says, I'm doing this. And you call and you're going, you're doing what? I would never do that. And then you start thinking, wait a minute, why are you approaching it that way? And so really being open in these times to being flexible, listening, and really hearing what the concerns are. And I really just want to say, especially in this time, I always call it elevating up, right? It's the brain getting into that executive function. We're in this time right now where we're trying to keep people healthy, right? We're in such a different mode of people being very protective of each other's health in the workspace. We need to focus on learning. We're going to worry about learning loss. We're going to mitigate for all the things that are happening and really hear where people are coming from and don't make assumptions about why people need what they need, the support that they need, and what the tools are that they need to approach their work. So, I was thinking as you were first asked this question, it's about flexibility. If you're not flexible enough that you can't bend over backwards and touch your toes, you need to keep working on it, because we have to be that flexible in these situations and understand that circumstances are going to change. The perspectives of our stakeholders will change, and we have to just roll with it and understand that that's going to be a part of this journey.
That's very helpful. Let me ask you this, as we are being flexible and as we are managing the new inputs and the new tensions and the new excitements for various issues and ideas, I'd say we need a North Star. And the North Star is equity, doing the true, right, and just thing for everybody that we are responsible to serve. So here's a difficult question, but important. What potential inequitable systems might we be instituting as an unintended consequence of our innovation? Not what are we building to be equitable, but if we just blink, what potential inequitable systems might we be wise to look out for? Sandy, what do you think?
Well, obviously this is the thing that keeps us up in the middle of the night, because, and as I shared earlier, I'm in a high poverty district, and 28% of our students are English learners, and we are spread out over almost 600 square miles. So there are lots of access and opportunity challenges already. And so within this, when I'm listening to my colleagues, and I've worked in affluent communities. And so I understand the advantages and the things that certain communities can take during these times. I can create a learning pod. I can have tutors come into my house. I can create ways to make sure that my child isn't losing that learning. And so I worry a lot about when we're done with this piece and we're transitioning back to whatever our new normal becomes, that we really have to have systems in place to shore up our students and our families. You know, Dr. Matthews talked earlier about the digital divide, and we've all known that it exists. This is certainly laid it bare in ways that I don't think we thought of. And one of my ahas in dealing with this is not the lack necessarily of just technology and connectivity, but really our familial deep understanding of technology. A lot of our families don't work with technology. And so, you know, whereas they can open a book and sit down and feel comfortable in that medium with their child, sitting down at a computer, clicking on links, going into different embedded links, it's a whole new ballgame. And so we've done a lot of work with our family engagement center to make sure we're shoring that up. But I think that as we go forward, we're going to have mental health and social emotional issues that we're going to need to make sure we're addressing. We're going to need to make sure our families who've been greatly impacted by this virus and the economic results are shored up as well, so that they can continue to support and engage, and that those advantages that other communities might have, we're really factoring in and figuring out what that support is. We're doing online tutoring. We're doing, you know, cohorts in the evening. We have, you know, we're partnering with Think Together to provide our after school. So trying to create that alignment. And we still know that there's going to be challenges in that access. So I think for me, really making sure that we're thinking it, not making assumptions about what our parents know and have done, and really trying to keep our parents in mind as we shore up our students and move forward.
Yeah, and we don't know what that new normal is going to look like. And we know the old normal wasn't so hot for everybody. And we don't want to be creating something that is anything other than better than what it was. So Martin, what are some potential inequitable systems if we're not careful?
Assuming, going back to the things that we have put in place, like Sandy mentioned, when we look at our demographic makeup, it contradicts everything that our students have been able to do at the high school level. We have students at the high school that are graduating a week before with an Associate of Arts before graduating from high school. So we know that our students have the drive, the resiliency to be able to overcome all these challenges of language, poverty, and yet, yes, there's some issues with technology that they're struggling with, that we're all struggling with right now. But to have students like this year, we had a young lady, Kimberly Valadez, graduated as a junior with 2 Associate of Arts, and then she's headed to Cornell. So when you think about this young lady, came in as an English learner, bright, right? Last year we had a Stefania that graduated also as a junior, and she's over at Berkeley. So you have these students that sometimes the perception is they have parents that don't speak the language, they live in very rural communities, but yet the drive, and that's one of the things that we've been doing since the last 2 weeks. We have had the parent conferences to reach every single student, and giving the teachers the luxury of time to sit with them and be able to open up those Chromebooks, even at the kindergarten level, and help the students navigate through those first steps. Yeah, we'll catch up with the academics as soon as we can, but that's one of the priorities, and that goes back to listening to the teachers. They were asking us to have the luxury of time to be able to build that relationship with the parents. So now the conversation, it'll be on how do we find those few students that still need the internet access.
That's wonderful. Just because we can't visit with the parents in person twice a year doesn't mean that we don't communicate with parents and include them. Thank you. And we can easily forget that. Dr. Matthews.
Yeah, for me, you know, we are the institution that is preparing students to thrive, and not just San Francisco Unified, I mean all of us in education are preparing students to thrive in the 21st century. And one of my big pet peeves has been, my son he would go to high school, he's out of high school now, but he would go to high school, and at the end of the day, he would say, now I get to go back to the future. And what he meant by that was, at school, this is the only place that I use paper, it's the only place that I use pencil, it's the only place I'm told to put my technology away and don't take it out. And as we think about the system that we have in terms of preparing for the 21st century, I mean, this pandemic has really shown that, you know, other institutions, you think about Twitter, where their employees went home, but they didn't skip a beat. So Tuesday, their employees all went home to work from home. Wednesday, you didn't hear anybody saying, hey, Twitter's not working, or I can't get in. Yet the institution that is supposed to be preparing students for the 21st century, you know, look how long, we're still not up to speed, and look how long it took us to get to the place that we are now. So I say all that to say, we have known the skills that are necessary. We know those skills, for example, for all students to be able to be online. We've known the skills, but we haven't had the will to implement that. Meaning, we know that if students are going to be technological able, they have to all have devices in their hands. So we know that skill is necessary, but we haven't had the will to make that happen until now, until the pandemic. Now we have devices in every student's hands. We've known, though, that students also need to connect. Now we have devices in our connections for all of our students who wanted to connect. We've known that in order for there to be the emotional progress that we need for our students, we need to be reaching out to families. Well, so we know that's a skill, but we haven't had the will to do it until now. Now we're reaching out, calling families, checking in, seeing how they are, seeing the progress that they're making, checking in on their needs. So I say that all of that to say we've known the skills that are necessary, but we haven't had the will to do it until now. And my fear is, you asked about what may be embedded, inequity embedded, is a fear of going back to what was before. We have to fight through, if we know these things are necessary. So for example, if we're back 3 months from now, back in school, those devices still need to be in students' hands. Those connections still need to be in students' hands. We need to continue reaching out, calling families, doing our progress checks on families. Those are the things that we know that make a system work and assist students in thriving in the 21st century. If we know that, going back should not prevent us from continuing to do that.
So a big question is this a phase through which we come out the other end and end up where we were? Or is this a transition, something that helps us morph into what we wanted to get to anyway, but got a little or a big push to get there?
And I think that in education, the ability to go back to the status quo is like a magnet, and we're all wearing metal suits. And if we don't fight through it, we will go back. We are the ones who have to say we refuse to go back.
And every system is perfectly designed to get the results it's currently getting, and every system is perfectly designed to maintain the status quo. But it's really swimming upstream to try and get to another place. So this is a silver lining. Just to probe a little bit on this one more issue, I think about the best ideas we've had in the past, and very progressive, innovative. And sometimes you go all the way to that end and you end up in a worse place that's even more inequitable than when you started. For example, we want to meet students' needs. So we group them by need. And then before you know it, you look up and you have tracks that are permanent and fixed and calcified and determine destiny for students. I wonder if there are any issues like that or practices that you see moving forward that we should be careful of, that appear at this moment to fill a need, but if not carefully watched, could turn into something very hurtful. I'm thinking like tracking. So we're not grouping students, so we can't do tracking virtually. Oh, yes, we can. Can you think about how that could be, right? Who gets to come back on campus? Who doesn't come on campus? When we have our alternate schedule, who's the odd days? Who's the even days? Why? Who's assigned to it? All those things don't go away because we're virtual. So I wonder if any of you have given that thought and have some worries about practices that could be inequitable if we're not careful, that we're building right now. Sandy, what do you think?
Yeah, no, we've actually talked about this because, you know, I heard his name's, I think it's Tom Vander Ark, who said, you know, kids aren't behind. We need to meet them where they are and move them forward. And really remembering that through this pandemic, that if our mentality becomes what you're saying, defaulting to all the kids who need intervention and remediation, we're going to be right back where we were. And so I'm worried about learning loss, and we can't approach it in the way that we have in the past when students aren't meeting whatever that set benchmark is at that particular grade or content area. So I think that is something we all need to be talking about and thinking about, because we do have this default to pull out, to segregate. And the minute we do that, we've lost all this ground that we've gained over these last years. And so we're already starting to talk about that, because we do know we need to be forecasting into the future about what that is, that we make sure is rigorous, high expectations, challenges them, but keeps our students together with good models of their own age and own ability level to keep that going, and keeping our teachers out of that, you know, that disposition that sometimes they can get into, where I'm sure they didn't get fractions, and so I'm going to spend the first 6 weeks reviewing fractions, even though it's 6th grade. So we really want to make sure that they stay at that level. The other thing that I've really thought about, because this is already happening, is parents already advocating for, well, we can do more online now. So my child, who already has 5 AP classes, I'm more than willing to have them take 2 more classes in the evening if you can do that online, right? And so we just have to be careful about the agency that people bring to this situation, where they extend it and create more opportunities for some students that will limit then the opportunities of some of our other students.
That's profound. Any others, Dr. Matthews?
I'll just mention one quickly, and that's as I'm watching this pod phenomenon. And so for us in San Francisco, it's the families that are choosing to have pods, and who they're bringing into their pod. And as we begin to, as you mentioned, bring students back on campus, we already have segregated schools in San Francisco, and will this just put into place a even more segregated system where, you know, kids who are on campus and coming back are, you know, low-income kids of color, and then kids, white students, high-income white students, high-income Asian students are in pods at homes. And what does that do not only for our schools, but what does that do for our society?
I must say, I've seen some plans and it looks very much like separate is equal. But last I checked, that was adjudicated and the answer was no. So I fear that sometimes we forget the lessons we've learned already in this new environment. Martin, do you have any worries?
That is a worry, and part of if I go back to some of the learnings and trusting our teachers, that as a grade level team and then as individual teachers, in March they personalize the learning packets that went to each individual student based on what they needed. So as they came back in August, that hasn't changed. And the reason that they wanted the parent conferences was to be able to make sure that they're differentiating and also getting a chance to know the students individually before we start to avoid grouping students based on ability. And also the things that we have to be able to negotiate, that we embrace what the students bring to our classroom, language, culture, right? And how we use that to bridge the academics becomes the art of the teacher. And not to be able to profile the students and perceive that they don't have the ability to learn the content, the grade level content.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, but it is a very concerning area,
Yeah.
Especially at secondary level.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
This is nuanced. It is not very clear. And well-meaning plans have embedded in them the potential to really create harm. So I just ask us all to be on high alert for that. And so the next step is, as you look forward to the next part of the year, what advice would you give to yourself in moving forward as a leader in the zone that you're in right now, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically? And what advice would you give to other leaders as they move forward? Dr. Matthews.
So not only would I give this to myself, but it was actually given to me. It's as one of the things I said initially was we're operating with, and we still are, we're operating with a sense of urgency and a sense of intelligence. So we want to make intelligence decisions, but we want to make urgent decisions. And two of my colleagues pulled my coattail and they said, but we also want to operate with a sense of grace and compassion. Grace for, I could show you an email that I got from a parent last night. And basically the email was, what have we been doing all summer? Why aren't we already back in you know, not even hybrid, but why aren't we already back with all of the students on campus? So it's not only having grace and compassion for what our teachers are going through. Many of our teachers are, as you know, home with small children. My daughter is a math teacher, high school math teacher, and she has a 3-year-old and a 8-month-old. So it's also knowing what our teachers are going through, what our families are going through. Many of them right now are worried about whether they're going to have a roof over their head in 2 weeks from now. So it's having grace and compassion for we're all going this together. But the other piece is having grace and compassion for ourselves, because I know that each of the people on this panel and each of the people, the 102 participants, we can be our own worst critics, and we probably are. And we need to have grace and compassion for ourselves to understand that unless you were around in 1918, this is the first pandemic you've ever been through. And so we're all trying to figure this out together.
Oh, very wise, very wise. Thank you. Martin, what advice would you give yourself and others?
I would give my advice to go back to something that we started doing back in April, in communicating with our staffs. And at first it was every month, and then as we began to do the work for the reopening of schools, it was every week, and inviting a team, not selecting, but inviting whoever wanted to come to the table. And with that, there was always questions they were asking. So as part of the process, we would answer these questions with responses, with answers, with documents, and then be able to share with the whole staff. So that provided us with a nice window to be able to continue to bring more people along and build that trust. Build the trust that I'm not working alone. I have my networks that I tap into, and I'm accessing those networks to be able to bring not only information, but also resources that we're not, as a teacher, we're not working in silos anymore. As superintendents, we have to be able to trust our colleagues across the state to be able to make this work. So
true.
Yeah.
So true. Thank you. Thank you. Sandy, speak to us.
Well, I so agree with my colleagues, and you know, grace and compassion, that phrase is something that we need to carry with us here, and I'll add a couple. Breathe deeply every day. This Zoom life is hard. It's stressful and it's exhausting in a whole new and different way for all of us. And so you can almost work more in this space than you physically did before. And so I do think we all need to be mindful of that and support each other. And along that lines, I would also say support and recognize. One of the things that we sometimes don't do well is praise. The brain loves the negative. We default to the negative. It's kind of like Dr. Matthews' comments, what have people been doing all summer? You know, so we have to really think about the things that are working well, acknowledge them, and support our folks, because again, it's that bright spot. Let's highlight the things that are working well and really recognize and support those people. Don't be stingy with love. Don't be stingy with praise. It doesn't get you anywhere. So make sure that we recognize that. And then the other thing I would say is, and it kind of ties back into what my colleagues have said, keep in your mind what you want to identify and hold on to moving forward, because we do want this to be a growth period for public education. We do want to make sure that we are actually learning and growing and changing and evolving, and, you know, not having kids, as Vincent said, go back to the future when they come into our classrooms. We really want, or when they come home, we want them to be able to be in our space and have all of their needs met. So this is an opportunity, and I'm not a Pollyanna, but I do think that in these times it's really important that we try to find the good things that are happening. It's an emotional, stressful time. And I guess the last thing I will say is seek first to understand and then be understood. And it's that counseling ABC strategy, right? Acknowledge, bridge, connect. We have people who have very different emotions around this pandemic. Personal experiences, personal impacts, other people who have a political viewpoint around it. And so we're navigating all of that within our communities. And all of our communities are so different in how they're positioned around what we're dealing with and how we're dealing with it. And so if we try to think about that, stepping back, you know, not getting, it's hard when you get those emails, and I get the same ones that Martine and Vincent do, and you're like, are you kidding? We haven't had a break all summer. Mm-hmm. And we also have to step back and say, okay, there's a lot behind this. How do I connect with you and move us forward?
So true. There was a social media post that resonated. Maybe you saw it. It was going around for a while, and it said, dear everyone, next time you look up and want to criticize something, put something in your mouth to eat, chew on it, and then when you swallow, just say thank you instead. So at this point, thank you so much to all three of you. We'll ask some questions right now of the audience for you to respond to, but first I'd like to introduce Heidi and Alan from Thought Exchange, and help us do a little crowdsourcing at this time. Would you mind?
It's an honor to be here today, and I just so enjoyed this panel. Dr. Lyons and Dr. Matthew are both partners of ours, and Sandy and I go long way back, and just so appreciate your leadership. And Martin, great to meet you and be here with you today. And Robin, this has just been so awesome. And we are partners with CALSA and ALIS as well. So La Familia's here. We have people from Florida even here. So yay. It's been awesome. So yeah, my partner in crime here is Alan Milkovec, and he's on the screen somewhere. There he is. And so what we're going to do today with Thought Exchange is we're doing a little crowdsourcing. And so the organizers of the event today came up with a question that they thought would be really relevant and helpful. Helpful to leaders, helpful to leadership, helpful to ACSA and CALSA in knowing what type of resources they need more, and to all the speakers today. So the question today is, what do you know that you wish you knew prior to the reopening of schools, okay? If you haven't participated in Thought Exchange before, we're just here to support today, and we are partners with ACSA, so we'd like to support some of their events. And so what we want you to do today is take your mobile phone, if you have it handy, hold up the camera, you don't have to have a QR scanner, and just hover over the QR code. If you have an Android, it's easier to go to tejoin.com and then type in the 9-digit code. It takes a matter of minutes. You're going to see a pop-up in the top of your screen. You tap on it, and there you are, you're in. It's a crowdsourcing platform for small groups, large groups, live, or across entire districts. And what you can do is safely and anonymously join the conversation we're having right now. So we want to make this interactive rather than just a sit and get type thing. Makes it a little fun. You get to share, you get to rate other people's thoughts. So we're going to set the timer up at the top, and you're going to see it, and there's no rules. We might go a minute over, we might go a minute less. It's just going to be fun. I don't know if we have music or not, but let's get started. Share your thought. It's confidential, your name's not attached to it, so be open. Just let's do it. Let's just be open and have fun with this and be very vulnerable. And then once you share your thought, you'll start starring the thoughts of others. So you'll be able to see other people's thoughts and rate them 1 to 5. 1 meaning you have less agreement with their thought, or maybe just resonate with it less. 5 meaning you have higher agreement, you really resonate with it. And then we're going to show the top thoughts as they emerge. So you'll be able to see what the wisdom of the crowd is. What do the people at this event with 88 participants really want to share about what they know that they wish they would have known prior to the reopening? And with that, let's get started. And we're also going to post it in the chat. We'll post the link in the chat should you not be able to join on your mobile phone. And we do urge the panelists, all of you, to please participate as well. We'd love your input. If you get stuck, just go to the chat and say you need help, and either Alan and I will be able to help you. There we go. Sometimes the silence is a little uncomfortable, so music helps. This is great. We've got 40 participants so far. Fantastic. We're a little bit more than halfway through. So we've got 41 participants and 19 thoughts. And I'm sure people are thinking very seriously about what they're sharing. If you look on the screen, you can see the thoughts coming in, and you can see the top thoughts emerge on the right-hand side and how they're starred. Once we complete this, we're going to have a couple minutes to maybe talk about some of the top thoughts with Robin and the panel. Got a few more seconds here, about 30 seconds left. So if you want to hurry and get your thought in, and then keep starring the thoughts of your colleagues here and of the other attendees. Just star away. 1 meaning you resonate less, 5 meaning you resonate more. It's a great way to get everybody's thoughts in and to hear more from just the loud people, but the unheard majority. Everybody participates, no judgment, and no names attached to thoughts. We're getting close to a thought from almost everybody. We're about, let's see, how's my math? We're about 8 away. Beautiful. Diagram. Okay. This has been great. So first of all, before we get started, I just wanted to give a big shout out to all of you, all the leaders, all the educators, lots of love and empathy from me and from our company. We just so appreciate everything that you're doing right now, and just know how hard it is. Sandy, you put it so well, and I resonate with you. I would give that a 5 if it was on Thought Exchange. And knowing everything that you're going through, just so much appreciation. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Robin and my colleague, Alan. And Alan, many of you know him. A lot of our partners are on the call, and he's our account manager with many of our districts here. Kaylee's also on the call. She's an account manager as well. And we're going to go ahead and move forward. We have a tight time frame. So Robin, Alan, take it away.
So I'm thinking that, Alan, do you have something to add at this moment?
No, absolutely not. Feel free to reflect on some of these thoughts, and if any panelists want to speak up about it.
Well, I think what we're going to do is go over to the questions right now. And then I'll just, if we have a moment at the end, I'll make a closing remark. But I think it's very important to get to the participants' questions. So Chris, can you help us field those, please? Whoops. Audio.
Yes, it would be my pleasure. Yes, thank you so much. And Heidi, thank you for that activity, for engaging the audience, listening to their thoughts, and really appreciate you guys at Thought Exchange. We have some awesome questions for Robin, yourself, and for the panelists. And I thought I would just fire away a tough one out of the gate. Do you think that the question is, do you think that when things become more quote unquote normal, that a portion of online instruction will continue to be part of the new norm moving forward, and students will be learning from home?
Let's see, Dr. Matthews, I saw you lean forward. Do I take that to mean you have a perspective?
Yes, and I would say yes for sure. I think that that will become part of. It's important that we make sure it goes in the way that promotes equity, students who need more receiving more. But I do think that it affords itself some opportunities for us, and I do think it will become part of the way that we do things. I do want to give a plug out to Thought Exchange, though. We use them for our town halls, and it was just fantastic. And the opportunity to go back and look at the starred ideas. Every family, every parent who participated, we had 7 town halls over the summer for that parent who emailed me that we've been sitting on our behinds. We had 7 town halls over the summer, and the opportunity for parents to have their ideas heard and also star other parents was just phenomenal. And so just wanted to give a little plug for that. It was fantastic.
Thought Exchange, consider yourself plugged. Wonderful. I want to add to that a little bit. Right when schools closed and everybody was worried about the logistics, you can't come back to school, what are we going to do? Our team got together to come up with a response for a design, one design that would fit regardless of the setting, because we know we have limited bandwidth. We can't have a design for homeschool, a design for pod families, a design for alternative programs, a design for distance, a design for in-class. So we call it TLC, but the L is learning online. And regardless of what the setting is, the learning online will continue. The equity issue that I just want to point out is that I think sometimes we think about learning online as a technological necessity, but we forget that people are behind that computer. And do we really believe that every student can sit behind a screen and make educational meaning out of whatever they're receiving, whatever they're viewing? I have children, and I myself, depending on the content, would have to say no. So I would ask us to be very, very aware of the potential inequity that could happen if that LOL, if that learning online module doesn't offer an opportunity for support for those who need it in the moment. Preview, review, etc. Just something to consider. Chris.
Yes, thank you. So another question is, as superintendents, how do you ensure collective efficacy of your organization in a virtual world? Sandy, you want to take that one first?
That was a mouthful.
Sure. I think that, and we've worked with Orenda and with Robin, and so, talked a lot about the system design, and so how are you determining that? And collective efficacy is so important, and it goes back to what we were talking about, of really celebrating what is working. We are doing this. We are having an impact. We're in classrooms. We are looking at data. We're going to be looking at our interim assessments, our formative assessments. So we need to continue to determine how we're going to do that as a system. And right now we're, we're only a few weeks in, I think, as all of us are. So we're getting a sense of what's going to happen. I will say this, right now, one of the things our teachers are doing really well is getting our students engaged. they are showing up. We have 97, 98% attendance in synchronous learning. They're present with their teacher every day in our elementary schools. So we are going to be monitoring that. And, you know, efficacy is really about your own belief in your ability to do that. And so using that data to feed it back to our staffs to say, look at what you are doing. So you're getting them in there. And it's just like any classroom, right? Kids pay attention for meaning and relationship. And so right now, if we can keep that relationship going, we can get into the meaning and we can start to actually have students engage in that learning and really move themselves forward. So we don't have all the answers yet, but I think it goes back to what Vincent and Martine said earlier about now we're going to start networking and saying, we're looking at this data, we're using it this way. How are you feeding that back to your teachers about the practices that are working and that aren't working? And I saw one in the thought exchange that said something about they wish they knew, I'm not going to say it correctly, but how quickly people would default to really bad practices right out of the gate. And so I do think that's something that we've got to then say, hey, look what's working. This still doesn't work, even in this virtual setting. Let's continue with this work. And so I think there are lots of opportunities for us to do that.
Data as a flashlight, not a club, huh, Sandy?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Martine, what do you think? Collective equity, collective efficacy of your district.
Data has to be part of the conversation as a way to be able to shed a light on those things that we need to pay more attention to, as a way to build capacity supports along the way, not to penalize, but to be able to find the where we need to be able to invest more of our support skills and be able to provide even our staff, we have some staff that are only Spanish speakers, so we have to be able to bridge with our custodians, right, that gap of language so they can be able to meet the needs of our students that are coming in or our staff. So we need to make sure that as we send out information, that we're being reflective and bringing them along as a way to problem solve to get better at what we're doing.
Wow, absolutely. Dr. Matthews, point of view, collective self-efficacy.
I would say I gave that plug as we started, and I think that it's just the focus on who we are, our mission, and what we're about. And in San Francisco Unified, we say that every day for each and every student, we're going to provide quality instruction and equitable support so that our students can thrive in the 21st century. So with that in mind, it means that we absolutely have to be student-centered. And if we're going to be student-centered, then we're going to listen to the voices of our students and our parents. And so we absolutely highlighted that this summer and raised that up through our town halls, through our work groups, where we made sure that voice was heard loud and clear, which helped us as a system to stay focused on as an entire system, let's stay focused on our students, let's stay focused on our families, and let's do what's in their best interest. So I think that really helped from the spring to where we are now.
Wonderful, thank you, that's very helpful. Chris.
Yes. We're going to have some closing comments from you, Robin, and then ACSA and myself. But before we get there, one last question for our panelists as we're wrapping up, and hopefully everyone will allow us to go a couple minutes into overtime. How do you balance compassion and accountability in a time like this?
Wonderful question, wonderful question. Martine, I saw you sit back in your seat. I've been thinking about this, haven't you?
No, it's an ongoing conversation. It's hard on the issues and soft on the people all the time. And sometimes we get things reversed, right? We're hard on the people and soft on the issues, but sometimes if we spend the time with the issues, then not focus on the individual, but on how we build that capacity, that compassion, that truly that trust that we need to build with folks, then it all comes back in a positive way.
Wow, that's a quotable quote if I ever saw one. Thank you. Nice. Dr. Matthews.
I would wholeheartedly agree with Martine, and I just say that's the issue right now. It's that tension between doing what we know what needs to happen for students, but also having the grace and compassion for those who have to deliver. And so that's the tension and the balance that we're all working on right now.
So nice, so nice. Sandy.
Yeah, I don't think I can add much. I really like, especially the way Martine phrased it, because we need to really be supportive. And I just say also supportive of the people. And I think I said that earlier. And people, I really do believe, work better when we're compassionate and love them to move them forward than when we try to use a stick. I always say if a stick worked, I would use it. You carry it around, it's portable, you don't have to plug it in, it's an easy tool to have access to. Never seen it work. So what's harder for us sometimes is to do it with love in our hearts. And I think when we do that, people meet us halfway.
Absolutely. Well, I just like to add these comments, and as you were talking, two ideas struck me. And one was, when I was in college, I studied Cantonese. It's just one of the oddities. But really, I wanted to put myself in a position of learning something that's completely different for me. Cantonese, that is non-written and tonal, and it's as different as anything could possibly be for me. And I was my own experiment. One of the concepts we learned, and I wanted the meta-linguistic understanding, is this word for listening, which is ting, and it means listening, but there are 5 characters, or 5 pieces to the character, actually 4 pieces to the character that comprise the concept of listening, or ting. One is an ear, the other is the mind, the other is the eye, and the last is the heart. Isn't that a richer understanding of the concept of listening in one, what we would call syllable ting? And so we have deep thinking and we have deep learning. I think we could call that deep listening. So I think we have that on one side, and that's what you all alluded to, and responding to that. And on the other side, and it looks like it's on the other side, we have the quest for educational justice. And I think what we need to do as CALSA and ACSA members and leaders at large is to not take them to be 2 different things. You can't have to decide between one and the other. This is not a rock and a hard place. They're compatible, and we need to find where they're compatible and not give one for the other. Our kids are depending on that. So those are my final remarks, Chris, such as they are.
Thank you so much for your thoughts in closing us out. And I have the privilege of just saying thank you to everybody. We really appreciate our esteemed panelists for sharing an hour of your very busy day and giving us your thoughts. Hopefully this allowed you to exhale, as Dr. Lyon was suggesting that we all do. And I want to say a special thanks to my friend Robin and her team at Arenda Education, all the great equity work that she does. And again, our friends at ACSA and my very good friend Margie, thank you so much for helping us to coordinate this. Those are my last thoughts, and Margie, I'll have you take it away.
Thank you. I actually want to bring Heidi and Alan back from Thought Exchange really quickly, because our participants do like to see the results from the survey that they took. So I'm going to give her 60 seconds to go over it really fast before I close out.
Oh, Margie.
Heidi?
Margie, you're so awesome. And I didn't give you a shout out. Thank you, Margie, for all that you do. We all love you so much. So yes, the beauty about Thought Exchange is that it's different from a survey where you take a survey and no one ever sees the results. So we wanted to make sure that we acknowledged you in this present moment in real time. So you took the time to participate. So we want to make sure you see the results, okay? We had a very full agenda today. So we just want to show you the top thought. So the top thought today that emerged amongst all of you, some people left, was the emotional toll on everyone that a pandemic takes. That was a top thought. Robin, would you like to say anything for those who are hanging around a little bit longer, or any of the speakers or presenters, the superintendents, Martin, Sandra, Vincent, any of you like to say anything about that, how you're dealing with that, the emotional toll?
You know, I think we all have our private ways. I have my colors that I'm wearing, and that keeps me grounded. I think we all have our personal ways of managing while at the same time getting our work done. What I just like to say to everybody is, as leaders, we're the last people on our list for care. So, and that'll never change. So can you please surround yourselves by people who love you more than you might love yourself at any given moment, so we can have people taking care of us.
Yes, we just did a thought exchange with a new school district recently, and the number 6 thought was mental health for parents. It was very telling, very telling. The second thought here is a better understanding of how to support teachers with planning, lesson design, and time management. Our educators are stressed, and I want to provide meaningful support. So would anybody like to share anything about that? Maybe something you're doing in your district?
Just speak up.
If I can go back to what we have four K-8s, and we've really been banking on the grade level partnership that they've been building for the last couple of years. And this way, they're not doing the work alone or at a school side. It's the whole school district coming together at a grade level to really be able to problem solve and be able to create and reflect along the way as they also work through their emotional roller coaster on a daily basis. So it really provides a nice venue for them to be able to come back through Google Hangouts without having to leave the privacy of their classroom to come together and be able to continue to adjust their planning that they're doing on a daily basis.
That's wonderful. And something I heard recently is that working from home, you're not having that time to drive and decompress. Maybe stop at the store on your way home, or maybe go see a friend, or maybe a happy hour. You're in your office all day and you never get that break. And Margie and I had that talk the other day. You're just working, working, working. So I think the emotional piece, here it is again, how emotionally exhausting this would be for staff. They're giving 110%. So, you know, that's big. So I think for leaders, it's really good to be aware of that and cognizant of that. I know we're in the essence of time. We want to be respectful. This usually does go over when we bring out these thoughts because people are usually interested in them. Margie, would you like to have closing thoughts now, or?
I would, yes. Thank you so much, Heidi and Alan, for supporting our webinar. Just to, you know, again, from State ACSA and from the very bottom of our hearts, thank you so much to all of our dynamic presenters. Wow, such a powerful webinar, you know, and I look forward to seeing all of you again in the future. Dr. Avila Lasal, you were fantastic. Thank you for leading the conversation and bringing some, you know, some much needed energy to these conversations. And to my buddy Chris, you know, what can I say? Hey, good stuff, right? So
it's always great, and you know, you did a phenomenal job bringing us together. And I want to invite everybody here to check out these great leaders that we have. Pay attention to what San Francisco is doing. Pay attention to what Palm Springs is doing. Pay attention to what Golden Valley is doing. I invite you to visit Orenda Education's website. I invite you to visit Heidi at Thought Exchange. These are people that are working alongside you to help advance your organization in a time where together we're stronger. So I wanted to thank you so much for bringing everybody together. We really appreciate you, ACSA and Margie. Thank you.
oh, you guys are so welcome. Thank you so much. Have a great night. It's been a long day, so we hope to see you again. Bye all.
Hi, everybody.
Muchas gracias.
Sandy, bye.